It's Thursday, July 11th, 2024. George Clooney owns a lib, a sitting Democrat senator owns a lib, and Ben Shapiro owns a lib. Next on the AM Update. Tomorrow is another edition, finally, for the first time in a few weeks, of Ask or Tell Me Anything. You can ask me any question you want. Tell me any news story you think needs covering on the AM Update. Make your submissions at the pinned post, at AM Update, at Real AM Update, I should say, on X. I love that segment every week and ready to get that going again. But first, because we're a stupid country, we really care about what Hollywood actors and directors think. George Clooney, fresh off of throwing a high-minded, a very ritzy fundraiser that raised Joe Biden millions upon millions of dollars just a few weeks ago, went to the New York Times yesterday and wrote an op-ed explaining why he thinks it's time for Joe Biden to drop out of the race for his re-election. In an excerpt of the article published at the New York Times, Clooney says, quote, "It's devastating to say it, but the Joe Biden I was with 3 weeks ago at the fundraiser was not the Joe Big Effing Deal Biden of 2010. He wasn't even the Joe Biden of 2020. He was the same man we all witnessed at the debate." In response to those words, CNN reports that the White House told them this.
In response to those comments from George Clooney, Jake, a campaign official who attended that Los Angeles fundraiser tells me that George Clooney left 3 hours before the president. So clearly, the gloves are off. Jake?
But what does that mean that George Clooney left 3 hours? What's the point?
The point of that is to suggest that Biden's stamina is better than Clooney's, and Clooney didn't have, eyes on the entire event. That's the response to the Clooney op-ed.
Democrat Senator Richard Blumenthal is joining the chorus of Democrats who are speaking out of both sides of their mouth regarding Joe Biden. Here he is yesterday speaking to a gaggle of press.
I am deeply concerned about Joe Biden winning this November because it is an existential threat to the country if Donald Trump wins. So I think that we have to reach a conclusion as soon as possible. And I think Joe Biden, as the Democratic nominee, has my support.
I'm deeply concerned because if he doesn't win, it's an existential threat. Therefore, he has my full support, but we need to reach a conclusion as soon as possible. Speaking out of both sides of their mouth, Senator Peter Welch yesterday actually became the first sitting U.S. senator, a Democrat senator. He's owning the libs along with George Clooney. He's the first sitting Democrat senator to overtly call on Joe Biden to drop from the race. In a Washington Post op-ed, he says, "For the good of the country, I'm calling on President Biden to withdraw from the race." Axios is reporting as of yesterday evening that Chuck Schumer is actually telling his top donors that he's okay with the swap out for Joe Biden. It doesn't seem like this is over yet. Despite all of the chaos that the Democratic ranks have been in for the last couple of weeks, this thing has not reached its conclusion. Joe Biden, your thoughts?
I was going to have a cabinet that looked like America. And it does. More minorities, more women, more labor. I'm serious. Think about it. That's who we are. That's why we're strong. We're diverse. We're strong. We got to stop looking at it like it's not a problem. It's an asset.
So what you couldn't see there is that Joe Biden grabbed a microphone, literally grabbed a microphone out of a woman's hand at a campaign event for the AFL-CIO, grabbed the microphone out of her hand and started rambling on about diversity and how he loves women. They just can't get out of their own way because he got dementia. And now here's this. Joe Biden could try to forgive the debt of millions of federal student loan borrowers just weeks before voters decide between him and Donald Trump at the ballot box in November. The Biden administration's spring 2024 unified agenda, U.S. Department of Education disclosed it'll publish its final rule on student loan relief sometime in October. I'm not sure what definition of relief they're using there, stealing from other people to give to people who probably don't deserve it. Due to the timeline of regulatory changes, that would normally mean the administration wouldn't be able to carry out its program until July of next year. However, the department could act sooner by simply publishing notice in the Federal Register as well. The U.S. House yesterday passed the SAVE Act, which would require proof of citizenship to vote. 198 Democrats voted against making sure everybody provides citizenship, proof of citizenship, in order to vote in the election in the country in which they reside. Shouldn't be a big deal. Apparently, to Virginia Democrat Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan, it's no different than Jim Crow laws.
This bill is essentially a poll tax. Because I am not aware of a single proof of citizenship document that does not cost an individual money to get it. unless we are requiring every state to provide one for free, and then it's an unfunded mandate. This is the 2024 version of the Jim Crow poll tax, and we should vote against it.
Wow. You're really breaking some new ground there, Copernicus. Nobody's ever thought of, accusing Republicans of being racist. A bipartisan group of senators this week launched a renewed effort to ban members of Congress from trading stock. Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri said, quote, "Congress should not be here to make a buck," in a press conference on Wednesday on Capitol Hill. He went on to say there's no reason why members of Congress ought to be profiting off the information that only they get. The proposal in question here is the latest chapter of a years-long saga in Congress to pass regulations that limit lawmakers' ability to buy and sell stocks, and the first one to get formal consideration by a Senate committee, in this case, the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, coming up on July 24th. Ethics experts say that legislators' access to the kind of information they receive gives them the potential of having an unfair advantage to the investing public. Yeah, no kidding. Hopefully this goes somewhere, but I just don't see any corruption when it comes to stock trading coming to an end. Back channels are what they are. And you can tell your second cousin from Alabama or your third aunt, great aunt in Washington that, hey, I might have heard, something about a stock tip, Lockheed Martin's gearing up for the next war in Azerbaijan or Tajikistan or some third world country. It might be happening. And, I could tell you exactly when that's happening if you give me a little kickback. It's that type of thing. It's the back channels thing I don't think they can ever get rid of. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is now expected to speak at the Republican National Convention, an apparent reversal just one day earlier when he was expected not to give a speech. DeSantis' speaking role at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee was confirmed Wednesday by a person familiar with the schedule who spoke on condition of anonymity to Associated Press because the schedule hasn't been released yet. Once allies turned rivals during this year's Republican primary, Trump and DeSantis have tried to achieve a detente that benefits both of them, but there were both lingering tensions between their camps and long memories in Trump's orbit about the hazards of elevating a former primary opponent to the convention stage. This is obviously a good move for Ron DeSantis. I can't think of a better person to handle such an arena with more class. Hope that goes well for him. And now here's this. Ben Shapiro of the Daily Wire testified in front of a House panel yesterday on censorship, the First Amendment, and other issues as well. Representative Eric Swalwell of California questioned him. It didn't go well.
You probably want less bureaucracy, right?
I do.
I want less bureaucracy. You want more efficiency?
I do.
I want more efficiency. You want taxpayer money spent wisely?
I do. Congrats on becoming a Republican.
Yeah. Yeah. My parents would be proud. Mass deportations, it calls for that. Do you support that part?
I support the deportation of any illegal immigrant who's in the United States who is not of benefit to the generalized American public.
So if they're picking agriculture that puts food on the tables of everyday Americans, they've never committed a crime inside the United States, they didn't come across with documents, should they be deported?
If they have not paid taxes and if their draw on the taxpayer benefits are larger than the contribution they are making to the economy, or if they're involved in criminal activity, they should be deported.
How do we measure that?
The same way that the IRS measures my income every year. It seems like if the IRS can track down every aspect of every receipt that I've ever submitted, and
So
they can do so for hundreds of millions of other Americans, they can do that for illegal immigrants as well, except for the fact that no one knows how many are in the country thanks to this administration.
So you would be cool with creating a system where they could pay those taxes if they wanted to and then stay and work and put food on our table?
It depends on how long it would take for them to pay the taxes, and they would also have to go presumably to the back of the line, although I'm not sure why I'm testifying about immigration policy at this point.
How about banning the abortion pill? That's part of Project 2025. Do you support that part?
I think that that's a state-by-state issue on a personal level. I'm
just asking you.
Sure, I'm a fully pro-life person, which means that I'm not in favor of the distribution of the abortion pill.
Banning same-sex marriage, what about that part?
I am in favor of traditional marriage between a man and a woman, and I'm perfectly fine with anyone having any sort of voluntary sexual arrangement they seek. That's a different thing from whether the government should attach benefits to that personal relationship.
But you think it's a sin to have same-sex marriage?
I mean, I'm confused. Are you asking me as a religious Jew what I think about biblically?
I'm just asking, is it a sin to be gay?
Is it a sin to be gay? I mean, how long do we have here? 2 minutes? I mean, if the basic idea is that sexual orientation is up for government regulation, I'm not in favor of the government regulating the private consenting sexual activity of adults. That is a different thing, once again, from whether the government ought to engage in actual benefits for particular sexual arrangements that adults make.
But again, just you to me, is it a sin or not?
From a religious Jewish perspective, orientation is not a sin, but activity is. That's also the same perspective of most major religions, so far as I'm aware.
Okay. And how about cutting Social Security? Do you support that part of 2025?
I'm not sure what Project 2025's position on Social Security is. I'm in favor of the restructuring of Social Security along the lines of privatization and lowering and increasing the retirement age, because you, as well as every other congressperson, knows Social Security is going to go bankrupt, and yet everyone seems to have an interest in lying about it for the next decade and a half until we have to take austerity measures or radically increase inflation or taxes.
And bans against books about slavery. Do you support that part about?
Why would I possibly be in favor of bans about books about slavery? That would be absolutely ridiculous. What I am in favor of is the idea that school libraries should be able to make decisions along the lines of what exactly is appropriate for, say, a 7th grader and whether they ought to be treated to cartoons and genderqueer. That's not quite the same thing.
And just because we found some receipts, you did say, I think homosexual activity is a sin.
Yes, I'm a religious Jew.
Sure,
that's true.
There's a genetic component.
You found me out.
Orientation. But the view of all religious people I know has always been that sexual behavior is something that is up to you. And you said, I may have a desire to sleep with many women, but I do not.
I agree with me. Yes, that's true.
Congratulations on your, I'm sure it's very hard to restrain yourself.
Self-awareness is dead. Eric Swalwell, the guy who had an affair with Kiss Kiss Fang Fang, the Chinese spy, thought he could go toe-to-toe. He was that dumb that he had an affair with a literal Chinese spy. Thought he could go toe-to-toe with the intellect of Ben Shapiro. Say what you want about Ben Shapiro. There's been a couple of disappointing things over the last few years with him. Not character-wise, just policy-wise, that he's articulated or not articulated. But you can't question his intellect. And Eric Swalwell thought he could go toe-to-toe for 4 minutes with Ben Shapiro? No. Nope, that is a strong rejection at the rim. Good try, Mr. Swalwell. And finally, we end on a romantic note. Who could have seen this coming? Ex-Clinton aide Uma Abedin is engaged to George Soros' son. The former top Clinton aide and MSNBC contributor is getting married to Alex Soros, the son of billionaire Democratic mega donor George Soros. The liberal lovebirds announced their engagement on social media, with Soros sharing a photo of himself down on one knee. This happened. We couldn't be happier, more grateful, or more in love, Soros wrote in an Instagram post. Abedin, the 48-year-old longtime aide to former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, revealed to the public earlier this year that she was getting romantic with the 38-year-old Soros in a Valentine's Day post on Instagram, showing the pair cozying up behind a table full of roses at a restaurant in a booth in Paris. 38-year-old Alex Soros, 48-year-old Uma Abedin. I wonder what she sees in him. Soros. We'll end it on that. Again, tomorrow is Ask or Tell Me Anything. You can ask me any question you want. Tell me any news story you think needs covering. Make your submissions at Real AM Update on X. See you again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntyre, and this is the AM Update.